Hola a todos, bienvenidos a mi charla. Don't worry, I'm not going to do it in Spanish. So I'm going to talk to you all about my 7-year journey from a hobby project to a published game, and why that's actually all right, why there's not any problems with doing that kind of thing. So this is me. I'm a hobby game dev. So you've all seen this kind of review for an indie game. Well, don't let it bug you. Making games takes loads of time, and finding those hours on a hobby project can be really hard sometimes. You might wonder why you're even doing game dev as a hobby, because it's not a hobby really, it's a job, isn't it? So, yeah. Dunk Dunk took us about 7 years of development time from prototype to final release, and here are just a few of the reasons why it took us so long. They're reasons, not excuses. Life just eats up time. We run our hobby studio, and we're really proud to use the word hobby in our spare time. Badgerhammer's just 2 people, 1 dev, 1 artist. We've got 0 budget, we live in different cities, and for most of the time on this game, we're in different time zones. The best place to start is probably to demonstrate how much time we've actually got available to put into our so-called hobby. So there's 168 hours in a week. That sounds like a lot, but you've got your day job, that's 40 hours of the week, chores, taking the kids to school, doing the dishes, tidying up, 25 hours, spending time with family and your friends, 25 hours, relaxing, maybe exercising if you can fit it in, 14 hours. It's already kind of depressing at this point, because you're spending about 3 times the amount of time you have working than you do hanging around with your loved ones. It's a good thing you love game dev as well, right? So it leaves about 64 hours for your hobby, except for that you've got to sleep and eat as well, which basically boils down for us to about 4 hours per week to spend on our game dev hobby. So now we know how little time we've got, and this doesn't even take into account weird turns of life, like having a baby or moving your family from one side of the world to the other. So, excuse number 2, reason number 2. Technology moves faster than hobby devs. So we use Unity to create Dunk Dunk and Esoteric Spine for the character animations, because we started it probably when the character animator in Unity was virtually non-existent. So working on a project like this for so long means that you can kind of see the history of our Unity experience a bit like the rings in a tree. Both of the tools we used saw really big changes over the 7 years, and most were positive, but often replacing old functionality or changing implementations led to extra work outside of making a game fun or having fun making a game. One upgrade often required another package to be upgraded, so where possible, we opted for stability. A scary slide. Features are always creepy. So it takes 10% of the time to get 90% of the work done. A really wise person told me this really early in my career, and it nearly always holds true, and it actually may be the best case scenario. Dunk Dunk went through 3 complete art changes. The first was for usability reasons. These tall guys, people couldn't really tell where the ball was going to connect. So we made them really small and chunky, then everyone understood that. But then I'd done some illustrations for a music video that got cancelled, and I was like, maybe I could make the game look like this, it looks a bit better. And then I did, but it meant redoing all the art again. It's a good job I love game dev. So we decided that it wasn't enough just to create a local multiplayer game, which was our original idea, so we made a bunch of single-player content. In retrospect, it might have been a mistake, but some really great things of the game came out of it as a side effect, like the CPU players, modifiers, or the mutators that we like to call them. We went down a lot of blind alleys of things that were interesting, but not really practical, given where we were in development. Online multiplayer, for example, which would have been great for the game, we approached this twice. Once on our own across the world with really terrible internet on one end, And again, when a high-profile publisher was only interested in Dunk Dunk if it came with online multiplayer. We spent 9 months trying to fudge it into it, but because we were so far into development, the latency didn't really work out, and it would have meant a full rewrite, and we didn't really want to put another 7 years into it at that point. We also remapped our controls. The original concept for Dunk Dunk used a twin stick system because we'd always loved the immersion of games like Fight Night and Skate, where you're kind of fully in control of everything. But most people just didn't get it at all. Our dev, Nick, we're both called Nick, by the way. He spent the time it took for a pizza to arrive in a restaurant on the first night of a 3-day demoing event to rewrite the system to use simple platformer-style controls. And the next day, it was a massive hit. Demoing is one of our favorite things to do. There's something about the energy of people enjoying your game that you just can't buy that. But demoing, even at your local indie meets, it comes with a cost in both time and money. So when we said zero budget, we actually meant sub-zero budget. Without a doubt, demoing led to us getting published. The north of England has loads of amazing events and organizations that bring games devs and the industry together. Things like Gameo and Game Republic. If you don't know those, you should look them up. And demoing always comes with feedback, which has to be processed, filtered, possibly actioned. And everyone's got an opinion, and there are only so many people you can please. And the most important one of those is you. And by the way, you're the world's pickiest client. Another downside to making all those kind of late changes is it has an exponential knock-on effect. Small changes might affect many systems, create new bugs, and require updates, and then suddenly they're not so small anymore. This is the scariest slide. Hobbies are a serious business. This is the extent of our business knowledge. We actually have a folder that is called business on our computer, and that's it. With Dunk Dunk pretty much done, it took us about a year to get a publisher, and we spent a lot of that year of our hobby making social media posts, pitch decks, filling in forms, doing tax, and it really felt like a job sometimes. And after going through different levels of due diligence with a number of publishers, we were on the verge of giving up and just releasing it ourselves. But a bunch of coincidences, which all related to demoing at many different events, meant that everything kind of aligned at the last minute and a publishing deal appeared. It was a really grueling experience, but we learned a lot about the process and a lot about what we actually want from our hobby. Getting a publisher came with its own set of requirements for assets, content, more single-player content, extra modes, and we're both working full-time. Well, I'm a freelancer, but sometimes I'm not working at all, and sometimes I'm working double. But Nick, the other dev, he's got a full-time job, so we still only had 4 hours a week each to put into this. So we signed up for another year of dev to finish our already finished game. And remember that knock-on effect that I was talking about? We really felt it here. It was really hard to get all that extra stuff done in that time. And it's also worth mentioning that meetings can really eat into your time when that hour is a quarter of your game dev hobby time. So accountants appear, companies get set up, lawyers hover around contracts that need to be reviewed, negotiated, signed. And maybe it's time to reclassify your hobby if you need a lawyer and an accountant. But really, and this is the one thing that I want anyone who's an indie to take away from this, is that if you're going to move forward with a publisher, you do need a lawyer, a good game specialist lawyer, and I can't stress this enough, don't cut corners. You need to budget for this in your already sub-zero budget. They'll iron out the fairness of your contract by industry norms and make sure that your publisher has their milestones and spends as concrete as yours. If there's one thing I want you to take away, and I just said that, but I'm going to say it again, but it's the importance of getting a lawyer if you're going to sign a deal with a publisher. And this is my favorite slide. This is a graph of game dev as a hobby. So all the fun is weighted at the start. Prototyping, coming up with the look, the story, the narrative, all of those kind of exciting things. It starts to blur in the middle between job and hobby around the finesse and content stage. And then it's all kind of downhill from there when you're making pitch decks and filling in forms for tax and to get on stores and stuff like that. In making social media posts. I'm not even on social media, and I had to spend hours of my life making social media posts. So yeah, things can start to feel pretty grim at the end. But don't give up. The funny thing is, if you spread those 4 hours a week over 7 years, it's actually less than a year of full-time game dev. So wait, 2 people made this heap of junk on their own in less than a year. And that's not actually bad. So it's okay to take 7 years to make your game. I'll tell you what, take as long as you like, and don't even finish it if you don't want to. Just try and make something, make sure that you're enjoying the experience, learning from it, and making something that you're proud of. And even though it might not always feel like it, and even though it is a job, it's okay for game dev to be your hobby. So these are my takeaways. This is going to be the end of my talk. We've still got loads of time left, so I'll probably open up to a Q&A. So take your time. It's okay. Have fun. Make sure you're learning and enjoying. And if you do find a publisher, make sure you get a really good lawyer. So yeah, thanks very much. This is a link to find our game.